Hello, it's day 59, and it is a screenwriter's journey. My name's Jack. Your name you can leave in the comments if you want. Don't know why you would. Um, as I recall, yesterday we returned to a good resolution, and I was doing at least one new scene that I recall. And so now it looks like I'm going back to make, as so often happens, you write a new scene and you end your day of writing and you go, oh, baby, I nailed it. And then the next day you start at the beginning of that scene and you go back and say, I sort of nailed it. Or occasionally you'll say, wow, I fell totally flat. In this case, there's, as I look at this, there's obviously two things. Well, there's more than two things you can do with dialogue. You can make some tweaks just to the wording to make it sound better, or you can completely change what's going on. And I seem to do a lot of the latter until I really get down to it. And then I'll play with it to try to get rid of words I don't like, or words that there are even words that A are hard to say or B are hard to say in combination with each other. And when you read them, you don't know that, but then when you speak them out loud, it's like, wow, that's a tongue twister, and I didn't even realize it. So yeah, so Holly is telling them to pick them up at the airstrip. We've got the reference that, I was talking about those bookends and that thing about the what was that? It's a convincing. Remember, I had that opening kind of not literally parentheses, but I was making that analogy. So I think I've kind of got rid of that. He convinces us there's no reason to stay. For the record, I left under protest. I mean, why would Abby say that, really? Well, yeah, the reason she said for the record is so setting up Holly could say off the record, although on the record is more accurate. Got on my flight. So in this case, Paul is getting whoever, J-Pats or whatever it's called in Alexandria, to hold her flight, which is fine because, he's the boss, but that doesn't make her super proactive and gung-ho. She's relying on other people, which, is fine. But at some point, the protagonist has really got to take matters into her, in this case, own hands. You think you can find them in 4 hours? Not a word to Paul. So it's obvious she doesn't want Paul to know. And so they're speculating why she's coming back. Obviously, guilty conscience. We'll see if that sticks around in my next pass through. Yeah, that no gloating thing. I obviously liked it at some point, well, when I was writing it, but not a huge fan of it in retrospect. I can be as hard on my writing as I can on anyone else's. And that's, I don't know that I've mentioned this, but part of the reason I'm doing this is because I had that series, which I may bring back on YouTube, where I would read and commentate live on people's scripts. And the people whose scripts I commentated on generally liked it. Some of them, had some pushback, which is 100% fine because it's just, as they say, one person's opinion. But part of the reason I think I did this is to show that, I can give to myself harsh criticism, and trust me, a lot of this has merited that. And just, it's kind of two parts of criticism. It's one, when you go back and rewrite your own stuff over and over again. And then when you commentate on it and have the luxury of, looking back and some objectivity, and you can say, wow, why did I write that in the first place? Or you can say, oh, I'm glad I found out that was trash and I improved it. So that's part of the reason that I'm doing this, is obviously for the experience of just really literally tracking every word. Literally every word I wrote on a screenplay over what I'm sure in real time, this is day 59. If I averaged an hour a day, that's 59 hours, and there's more to come. Some days were shorter, some were longer, but I mean, that's a lot of kind of retrospection. All right, where are we? I would be super interested to know, and I've asked this before in the comments, if you spend more time listening to me or more time reading the script and trying to keep up with all the changes and what's going on. Because I obviously have found myself doing a lot more kind of extemporaneous commentating and less really commentating on exactly what I'm doing in the script. I do sometimes, and I think starting out, I figured I would do a lot of that, but I find myself going off on tangents as the inspiration strikes me. Okay. Just a second. So now Holly's learning from Paul just as she arrives to get picked up that the helicopter took off with the kids in it. Which, again, if you've read this, you already know all this. So I'm just rewriting this, hopefully to make it better. But that's what's happening here. That'd be crazy if someone just like stumbled on day 59 and this is the first you've ever watched this. And I'm sure you would be tempted to go back and start from day one. Maybe. All right. If she's right, sure. So we're setting up, obviously, the fact that they're going to this Wright City place because that's where the helicopter took Rachel and the two kids. They're not really kids, but I guess they're kids. Anyone can be a kid, especially if you're a goat. Sorry. Again, I think I did pause and like look at a map to see the actual distances. And again, as I've said, I kind of do that because I want to be accurate, but it doesn't really matter. And obviously, you can make up cities and towns and geography all you want. So, yeah, this is really this whole thing of why Paul wants Holly to go. I struggle with this a lot, and I continue to in this draft, and I hate to say it, in subsequent drafts. I don't know if it's not like I researched this or you really could. I know the FBI and U.S. Marshals do work together, so I'm trying to come up with a plausible reason why Paul would be talking to this guy and the guy goes, well, we need a U.S. Marshal presence up here or it's too bad for you, which is, I mean, as you can see, I'm just totally rewriting this, trying to make something reasonably plausible, let alone, further the story and be dramatic and blah, blah, blah. So that doesn't seem very plausible to me. If there's no U.S. Marshal presence in the next 30 minutes, he's shutting us out. And Holly actually, by her response, she knows that if indeed Noble has said that, it's got to be BS. And so as far as Paul knows, as far as we know, and maybe this is the truth in this version, he's held the plane for X amount of time, so Holly has this opening that she can go back. Of course, he doesn't know that she's landed there and is going to do what she's going to do. He thinks that she's in the air and the pilot's going to change course and go up to Wright City. And so, I don't know. Yeah, it's kind of frustrating in a way reading back stuff that, well, I guess it's two parts. One, in retrospect, again, 6 weeks later, that it wasn't that hot. And B, what was the B part? That maybe at the time you were just struggling, as I obviously was, to justify what's going to happen. Especially because, as I've said many times, I'm trying to make this as simple as possible, the story. Okay. So Holly, the first time I go shopping. So she's making it sound like she's doing Paul a big favor when in fact she's not. And then there's a whole question of, does that even matter? We go where you go. That's not happening. So there again, I've been over this part enough times that there's some things that you know are going to happen in the script. So what can you do to either throw attention away or make it seem like, wow, maybe it won't happen? And that's kind of what's going on here. Holly is explaining what she just heard from Paul, which again, well, the audience doesn't know either, which is why Holly is telling them that. But that's frankly what she's doing, right? Is just catching the audience up on a conversation that we only heard half of. And is that really the most efficient way to spend your valuable script pages? Think of it. You've got, anywhere from 90 to 120 pages to get all of this stuff done. It's really daunting when you think about it, especially because, compared to a novel, which is 10 times, I'm not going to say easier, it's just, you have 10 times more freedom to do stuff. You've also have the option to put, 300 words on a page or 500 words on a page, depending your paper size and print size and blah, 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 blah. Whereas a screenplay is so structured for the most part. You have to use Courier. You have to have certain line spacing. I like to use a lot of white space. So when you think about how few words are on a page, it'd be interesting to count the average. But I mean, it can't be more than 200 maybe, compared to, like I said, on a novel, you could easily have 350 or 400. And typically novels are a lot longer. So what's the point, Jack? The point is you have to be super judicious and you have to be super careful with literally every word you write. Because again, even though, unless it's dialogue, it's not going to appear or no one's going to hear it, but you've got to convey so much stuff in so few words. It's just crazy. And that's why, I'm sure I've said it, but I'm not the first, but I think I agree that screenplay is the hardest kind of writing there is, for so many reasons that I will not go into them now. So I've strayed again, but again, so they're at the airport and Gary, oh my gosh, the day's over. As you saw near the end, Gary was venting his frustration on his car, which I kind of like that idea that he doesn't, yell at Abby or yell at Holly, but it's just getting worse and worse. And so he's trying to lock his car from way too far away. And the more he tries and fails, the angrier he gets. And he's basically taking out all his frustrations on not even his car, on the fob, locking thing. Anyways, I couldn't even tell you what I wrote today because I spent so much time talking about other stuff. And if you don't like that, then you can watch this without the sound on. Turn off your speakers and enjoy the rewrites. But maybe, as I've said a zillion times, hopefully you're getting something out of this, especially you new writers out there. I just saw something interesting, which I will comment on day 60 of a screenwriter's journey. Until then, as I've said a few times, write on.